Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of Van Life, Living in the Ark. I was just talking about how imperfect I can be sometimes, because yesterday the Holy Spirit told me not to come out to the woods, that I was supposed to stay at home, and it turned out my mother wanted to play a game of trains, so I did. Well, what happened during that game of trains was I got upset because I made a mistake, and then because she made a good move that cost me, I got upset that she made it, right? And it's kind of irrelevant. But my point is that quite often when we get upset at ourselves, our initial response is to blame everybody else for what we did, because it was my mistake that I made in the game, right? But I was going to be upset with her. That's what my thought of Satan does. It makes me my thought of selfishness, because a lot of times people aren't clear on that. Understand that your fear, your guilt, and your selfishness are all your thought of Satan. Your thought of love and forgiveness, that's your thought of Christ, which is the thought of God. So my Father created what is not yet is. It's this thought of selfishness, and it causes fear and guilt when you follow it. Because now, if you don't know Jesus and you don't know that selfishness is wrong, well then that might not be the case. But anybody that studied Jesus knows that what I'm telling you is true, because Jesus said it was. But you had to seek his parables and understand his parables, because he explains it all in a secret way so that you don't find it until you look for it. But the Holy Spirit told me I'm supposed to reveal these things and be very clear about it, because as you can see by looking around this world, friend, the hour's getting late. So it's getting time where you're going to need to decide, do you want to be the spirit of love and forgiveness or the spirit of fear and selfishness? Because the choice you make is going to be the one you have. So, and it's not my Father's choice, it's yours, because my Father created this thought that is not yet is, which is the thought of Satan, which is the thought of selfishness. Now, he only created it because you would have no free will without it. If you had no free will to choose the wrong thing, then you couldn't choose the right thing. And therefore, there would be no love known by experience. You see, when you give more to those that have less, and you do it for the love of the Father and for the love of your neighbor, well, then you know yourself as the greater experience of love. And you couldn't give more if somebody didn't need more. So there needs to be a dichotomy here of more and less in order to create experience. However, God did set down a set of laws, because free will is only free if it's given freely, right? So when we choose wrongly with it, we cause suffering to each other. And then because we're so busy being selfish and worried about what we have, we don't look at what our neighbor has. And because they envy us and we ignore them and we think we're more and they're less, well then they get upset and start trying to figure out how to be more. And that's how this world turns into the mess that it's turned into. Now, a lot of people aren't going to want to admit that, and I don't blame you, friend. I'm just here to tell you the truth. It doesn't matter whether you believe it or not. So the only way to change that is to do what Jesus said. And that's the reason Jesus said that he came for those in need of a doctor. Those that were born into the light and they think they're self-righteous and they think they've got what they need. They don't understand what Jesus said, because most of them didn't read what Jesus said. However, even if you're the person that thinks you have what you want, if you said you know Jesus, you're going to want to go read Jesus, because at the end of the age, you have to make a free will choice to enter the kingdom, which means you have to be seeking it in order to enter it. Because those that have stood on the steps to the temple and said, "How wonderful am I? Thank you, Lord, for not making me like those gay people or all these other people that aren't Christ-like." Those of you that did that, there's a debt for that. Jesus said that you'd be more justified to be the tax collector that came and beat his chest and wouldn't even look up at God, saying, "Father, forgive me," right? That's what he said. So understand that. So I hope you're understanding the parables that Jesus gave you, because it's important. And a video a couple weeks back I created, and I knew that February 24th was going to be something because the Holy Spirit told me in advance, and I didn't know what it was. And all of a sudden this morning, while I was at home, he told me to look online and see what happened on February 24th, right? Because I didn't see anything, and I'm not one that follows the news too much, and I only look at it when my father tells me to, because I don't need to watch people kill each other. We're doing it every day, right? So I only follow what my father tells me to. So I turned on the news, and there on a couple different accounts online, it talked about 2 prisoners being released from Guantanamo Bay that were Arab. And do you understand that we're even more like Rome than Rome was? That Rome, they didn't, their citizens had rights, but everyone else that wasn't a Roman citizen was considered less than worthy. Do you realize that we Americans, the ones that proclaim equal freedom for everybody, that say that we want freedom and equality for everyone, we have a base, a prison in Guantanamo Bay off of U.S. soil so that we can hold people without a trial? Do you realize that, that was standard for Rome, right? If you go read about Paul in the Bible, you will see that Paul was actually getting ready to take some serious flack until they found out he was a citizen of Rome, and then they had to abide in rules. And I'm not going to tell you that I'm a lawyer, friend, but to my understanding of the things that I heard back when it came about, the Patriot Act gave our government the right to take a United States citizen if they suspect them of terrorism and hold them without trial in Guantanamo Bay because they don't hold them on foreign soil. Do you understand that? That's more evil than even Rome, friend. Do you understand that? Do you understand what this government's getting away with? Now, I'm not here to judge them because, they're using fear to keep us in line and dividing us with these politics. They're dividing us every which way till they get us to murder each other, which we're working on, if you haven't noticed. So what I hope is that you're paying attention to what's going on and that you don't get involved in all that. Because Jesus said that, and this is really important you understand this, Jesus said, "Before me the kingdom suffered violence and was taken by force, but after me it won't." Right? So what that means is that if you start murdering each other when this nation goes into that, you're not going to make it into my Father's kingdom. There's going to come a time the door to the ark's going to close. So I hope you're really looking at that. Because Jesus said offenses must come, but woe to those who bring them. He even said that he was going to go as far as, because he came and gave us the truth. And he did say that before him the kingdom suffered violence and was taken by force, but after him he wouldn't. But then he went as far as saying that those that already had a seat at the table, he was going to cast back out of the kingdom and make them enter rightly. Do you understand that? I'm telling you, friend, the Pharisees aren't telling you this stuff. The people in church, they don't read Jesus. They don't know Jesus. They listen to what other people tell them about Jesus, and they only tell them the truth that they want in order to get them to do what they want. Jesus never told you were going to get a free trip to the kingdom. If you go read his parables, because understand, Jesus said, "I'm going to speak in parables so they don't understand, lest they turn and be forgiven." Do you comprehend that statement that Jesus made? Do you really understand what he was saying? Friend, I was mad as a hornet. I'll be straight up with you. When he did that, I threw down my Bible and I was like, I'm done with you, man. Right? Because he said, "Lest you turn and be forgiven." So I was like, why don't you want me forgiven? I was mad, friend. Mad as a hornet. I was trying to knock on the door to the kingdom, knocking all lightly, afraid to make God angry. There I go reading that statement. I was like, the heck with this, right? But that's the way that, you know what happened? Later on, when I came back to knocking, I knocked out of sheer audacity. Do you think I didn't get upset at some of the statements that Jesus said? I was fired up. I didn't believe God was to be afraid of. That's part of my problem. I never feared God. I always knew in my heart God was love. I didn't know how I knew that, I just did. So I finally did knock on the door to the kingdom hard enough to knock it off its hinges, right? That's what Jesus said we had to do. He didn't say, be going to the knock on the door and be like, Father, give me some bread. No, he said out of sheer audacity, like it was your neighbor in the middle of the night. You have to be like, Father, give me some bread. Right? That's what he said. He said, knock like that. He said, knock out of sheer audacity. So, that's what I did. But you know what happened? He kept giving me just enough to keep me coming. And then one night, I got really upset because I knew God was love. I was looking at this world. It was right after the 2008 bank crash. I had just lost my business again. I lost everything. And this is the second time in my life following God that he gave me a path that took everything from me. Turns out he was running me through the fire because I did not have any humility, friend. He had to burn it off of me, so I don't blame him. But up to that point, I was upset. And that night, I said to God, and I was out, I lived in a cottage in Annville, had a little cottage out by Swatara Creek in the middle of nowhere. And I came outside, and I was out there, and I was going to pray, but I just didn't have a prayer in me, friend. I was ticked. I was mad at God. Because here I was going through the ringer again. So I said, I don't care if you whip, beat, and crucify me. You give me the truth or you kill me now. And I meant it, friend. I was madder than a hornet. Because, that 2008 bank crash, the reason that happened is because they let them bet against the market. That's what happened back in the Depression, friend. Because the corporations own our politicians and they're just slaves to them. They let them do whatever they want. They don't make the rules for us. They make the rules for the corporations. You aren't getting that yet, but you're going to soon, because there's only 3 corporations that own the entire country. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street. And the nation's waking up to it. And when they do, you think I'm joking about people murdering each other. I'm telling you, it's coming. But anyway, so I got really upset. Well, when I yelled that, my father gave me this death in my head. A death showed up in my mind of me being killed. And then I heard a voice, and it said, and I mean a voice like me talking to you. I heard it that clear. It was one of the clearest times that there's been certain times in my life that God's voice was so clear to me that I knew it was like he was standing next to me, not in my head. That's how loud this was. And it said, do you agree? And I agreed. Friend, I didn't want that. But you know what? Jesus didn't want his either. I wonder whether if that isn't how it worked out there. If he wasn't out there knocking on the door to the kingdom and just got mad enough to say, that's it, you give it to me or else. And he said, here's what you're going to have to pay, right? Now, I might not have to pay that price. Because what the Father showed me is that is actually the reason that I do what I do. Because quite often, friend, my thought of Satan comes to me and tries to scare me to death of what people might do because of the things that I say on these videos. I'm quite aware that Jesus told us that if you come to love him more than the world, that the world will hate you for it, and that there's a good chance somebody will kill you thinking they're doing God a favor. So I'm aware that that's a possibility for me, right? But since I promised my Father that death, I can't back out. So my yes must be yes, because that's what Jesus said, right? So now I have this commitment to God that I can't back out of, and that is to stand for the truth of love and the love of truth. And you hear me talking all the time about how imperfect I am. But that doesn't mean I can't tell you the truth about what Jesus said, because Jesus has taught me how to ask for forgiveness and receive it. However, you don't ask for it once. Salvation isn't a one-time thing. It's a daily thing. My Father only created you for relationship. He wants you to come to him, not once a week. He wants you to come every day. Jesus got up and sought the kingdom first, friend. Every day. He was often going out into lonely places to seek the Father through the Holy Spirit, right? And so he came and spoke as the Word made flesh. However, Jesus also said, a student is not greater than his teacher. It's enough to be like him. So now for me to be like him, I have to try to be like him. That means I have to get up every day and seek the kingdom first, often go out into lonely places, because I'm fully divine. Jesus didn't have sin. You don't understand that Jesus wasn't fully divine like we are. Because die is two, vine is fruit. We are the fruit of two vines. Jesus, his thought of Satan had very little power because he had no sin, so he had no guilt, which left him with no fear. He absolutely knew where he was going. He knew he had the kingdom. He already had it here. But I have it here, even though I'm fully divine, because every time I make a mistake, I ask my Father for forgiveness and he gives it to me. And then if my thought of Satan tries to beat me up, I tell that thought, I say, well, I appreciate you hanging around, but you're pointless because I already asked my Father for forgiveness and therefore I've got it because Jesus told me I did, right? So that's the way this works. But you have to believe that. And then you have to do what Jesus said, because otherwise your thought of Satan has the ability to deceive you. Because Jesus said in order to be forgiven, you have to forgive, right? Go listen to the Lord's Prayer. It says, forgive us our debts as we forgive those who debt against us. So if we don't forgive those who debt against us, we're not forgiven our debts. That's what that statement in the Lord's Prayer means. That's why it doesn't say forgive us our debts regardless of whether we forgive them their debts. It says forgive us our debts as we forgive those who debt against us. So understand that this forgiveness is an ongoing thing, and it's in order to keep it, you have to give it away, right? So the kingdom is given to you by grace, but the only way to keep it is to give it away. And if you don't, it'll be just like Jesus said, because I know from experience, because it's happened to me over and over, because I wasn't getting what he was saying, that when I would go to him and ask for forgiveness and I would get it, and the demons, meaning the thoughts that I had and the guilt they caused from the sins that I did, he would cast them from me. But because I wouldn't stay focused on him, I would eventually let my mind wander back to bad places, right? And then because my house sat empty, these thoughts, which the Bible calls demons, they're thoughts, friend. Spirit, thought, get it? Do you understand? Jesus said the Father's of spirit, so is Satan. It's a thought. So I think of my Father. It's the only thing I can give him as a gift. I think of him. He thinks of me. We think of one another. He loves me. I love him, right? But the only way that I can give him a gift is to give it to you. So I'm giving you the things he taught me and what he asked me to give you on this video, because he doesn't need it. He's the one who gave it to me, right? So the only thing I can do is give you my experiences as a gift from my Father, because he run me through the ringer in order to learn these things. I'm not lying to you, friend. I've been through some hell. But even though he put me through some hell, I found the kingdom because of it. And I can't say it's wrong because it's right, because I went through those things. Even though it caused me great suffering, I now have more to give to those that have less, because I have the wisdom that my Father has given me through learning through those experiences. So now, even though it was all wrong, it's still all right. And even though it's all right, it was still all wrong. And so, because both are true, neither are. It goes back to Pilate saying, what is truth, right? If you get to know this Jesus inside and out, you're going to understand things, because Jesus told you, reveal secrets that have been hidden since the foundation of the world. And he did, friend. They're all through what he said. But when you're listening to the Pharisees tell you what he said, he told you that they won't enter the kingdom and they won't let you enter either. So your job is to not listen to them, right? He never told you to listen to preachers and priests. Jesus said, call no man teacher. I'm your teacher. So Christ is my teacher, right? So therefore I learn from him. Now what I learned from him, I give to you. But I'm not teaching you anything because it's him that taught me. And I don't sit on here and create like lesson plans, friend. This isn't my stuff. Jesus said before we go in front of our judges to not think about what to say, that he'd give us what to say right then. Well, that's the way I come on this video. I don't think about what I'm going to say, because otherwise I wouldn't say half the things I say, friend, because I'd be worried about upsetting you or that you'll judge me, because I've done a lot of things to be judged, right? People can judge me from my past. I was a drunk. I was a person that used to be addicted to porn. I mean, in my lifetime, I've bought prostitutes. Friend, I'm not this wonderful dude. I'm just not. I'm the one my father drug up out of hell and gave me a greater kingdom. But he'll give it to you. All you have to do is ask for it. And then go read what Jesus said and do what he asked. Because he told you those that hear his sayings and put them into practice will be like those that built their house on the rock. But those that do not put them into practice will be like those that built their house on sand. And when the storm comes, your house is going to fall. And friend, if you can't see it in this nation, this Christian nation, there's a storm on the horizon. And if you don't have a house built on the rock, friend, your house is going to fall. And I don't care whether you believe me or not, but the blind are leading the blind and the whole world's falling in a ditch and nobody can see it because they won't look. But don't worry about them. I tell you what's going on here a lot of times because, to tell you the truth, I'm hoping I shock you awake when you go look at the fact that BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street own this nation. Because you are running short on time. And I want every one of you to find the kingdom. But understand that my father told you, and he wasn't talking to the Jews, he was talking to the Christians, right? Because the Jews didn't listen to him. So everything he said, he was talking to you and I, not to them. He told you they weren't going to listen to him. He said that you don't take new wine and put in an old wineskin lest you burst the skin and both the wine and the wineskin get ruined. So what he was telling you was that the Jews weren't going to accept him, but he came to also so that we could accept him, but that they would accept him at the end. But they have to wait until after the wilderness goat shows up. I mean, you have a small amount of people believing in him, but understand the Jews that are turning are believing in him as the Passover lamb. And that isn't the ritual they needed. They needed Yom Kippur, which Jesus and Judas created, which you don't know yet, but you will. So that's the reason that he said, do the bread and wine in remembrance of him, because really his flesh is his word and his blood is his spirit. So if you don't eat his flesh, meaning his word, and drink his blood, meaning his spirit, you will by no means enter my Father's kingdom. He told you that, right? So now you can go look at that and see the truth behind that. It was kind of like a parable, right? But it also kept you relating the bread as his body and the blood as his wine. So here at the end of the age, you and the Jewish nation can see that Jesus and Judas already created Yom Kippur, right? So he took the bread, which was his body, and he dipped it in the blood, which was the wine, right? And then he handed it to Judas, and when Judas took it, Satan passed into him because Satan wasn't in him to begin with. And then Jesus said to him, go do what you must do. Therefore, casting him out of the lot, casting him into the wilderness. Do you understand? Go read Yom Kippur. If you're Christian, you're going to need to understand this, because you're not going to believe this unless you understand Yom Kippur. Because all of a sudden things are about to start changing and people aren't expecting it to change, but it's about to change. So you need to understand what you need to know so that, and anybody that hears what I'm saying and goes and looks at this, you'll have a jump start on the rest of everyone else. And friend, he told you that at the end of the age, that you're going to run to those that already have oil and say, give me your oil. So you might want to go get some oil before everybody else is at the store buying it up. Because oil is serving my Father's children. You have to know love by experience. He said, loving those who love you, that's easy. Even the sinners and tax collectors do that. What credit is that to you? You have to love those who don't, which means you have to go out and feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit people in prison. Go do it, friend. Get a jump start on it. I know most of you aren't going to believe a word I say, but I'm telling you this is the way it's going down, whether you believe it or not. So I sure hope you go ahead and go get some oil while there's some oil to be had. Because otherwise, when all the places to get oil are full and you go say, hey, I want to help you, they're going to say, I'm sorry, but go get your own. You're going to have to go to the store and get your own oil. You're going to have to go find a way to go feed the hungry because there's no place here for you to help us because we have too many people as it is. I'm telling you, this is all going down. I know you don't believe that right now because Christians still believe in the Pope and they still believe in the Pharisees instead of in what Jesus said. But it's about to become very clear that what Jesus said is the only fruit that's going to get you into the kingdom. Because Jesus told you that he was the vine and that you were the branches and my Father was the gardener. And at the end of the age, my Father's going to cut off the dead limbs. But you could have also made that conclusion from all his parables about seeds that died. Friend, he talked about seeds that fell on the path, that got eaten by birds, that fell in shallow soil, that fell into the brambles, and they didn't grow. They didn't grow because they died, right? So it's dead seed. My Father isn't after dead, rotten seed. He's after the harvest. He's after the crop. So you might say you know Jesus, but Jesus told you at the end of the age he was going to deny those that prayed, prophesied, and cast out demons in his name. He's going to say, I don't know you. I was hungry. You didn't feed me. I was naked. You didn't clothe me. I was in prison. You didn't visit me. So I hope you're really reading these things and understanding what Jesus was saying, because all of these parables come together to create a kingdom. But the only way to get the kingdom is to give the kingdom. And the more you give, the more you receive. And the more you receive, the more you have to give. And if you do it for the love of it, friend, you're going to find great joy in the kingdom that you're given. Now, if you do it out of fear isn't a worthy reason. You got to believe in forgiveness and then give it to others. Look for joy. Love, peace, and joy, friend. That's what the kingdom is. I see what's coming. I see that this world's falling into the darkness. I'm not afraid. My Father's going to take care of me. Even if I have to go to my cross, just like Christ had to go to his, there's no sense in crying about that now, is there? Jesus kept the kingdom until the minute he didn't. He didn't wander around moping, oh, poor me, I'm going to have to pay a big price. Friend, he said, rejoice. You're going to get a greater kingdom, right? So I rejoice. I've got a greater kingdom coming. All I got to do is believe and have faith in him. Doesn't matter what happens to me. Friend, I've had terrible things happen to me in the past as a child. But it doesn't matter. I forgive them, for they know not what they do. I forgive them because I forgive those that did things to them. Friend, this is something we keep doing to each other. We keep blaming everybody else, but we got to start saying, you know what? We can't change the past, but we can change the future by living a different present moment. So it doesn't matter what happened to me yesterday. The only thing that matters is what I'm doing today. And am I going to choose love? Or am I going to choose fear and selfishness and guilt and resentment? Because I'll tell you, resentment is like eating rat poison trying to kill the other person. The only person that's dying is you. And I can tell you that because I ate a lot of rat poison for a lot of years and nobody was dying except me. And every time I tried to gain my life, I just lost it again because I wouldn't let go. I would not forgive. I didn't understand it was me keeping me in hell, friend. If you do what Jesus asked, you'll get out of hell. Anyway, I hope you find some love and joy in the things that I'm talking about, because I know some of it sounds scary, but I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to get you to understand that Jesus offered you a greater kingdom, but the only way to keep it is to give it away. And so I'm hoping that you're going to start giving it away so that you can get more, because if so, you'll have an abundance of oil. All right, friend, well, I love you because my Father loves you. I don't know most of y'all, right? People that watch my videos, I've never met most of them because Do you think my friends and family listen to my videos? What did he tell you? A prophet is only without honor as in his own hometown, friend. They all think I'm a whack job. They don't believe a word I say. But it doesn't matter because I'm not here for them. I'm here for my Father. And so I give it to him and he gives it to me and I give it to you. That's the way it is, right? That's what Jesus told us to do. All right, friend. Well, may God bless you and yours.